Good morning, gentlemen. We all ready?
Yes.
Wonderful. The County Port Authority special meeting will convene. It's March 24th, 2025. Who could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
under
one
God,
nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ruane, before we start the meeting, we will need to put something on the record, please.
Good morning, Commissioner Walter, Warren County Attorney's Office. Please let the record reflect that a quorum of the Port Authority is physically present in this meeting room. Chairman Ruane is appearing via interactive electronic technology due to extraordinary circumstances that allows him to see and hear these proceedings. Likewise, said interactive electronic technology permits each port member, the public, the clerk, and staff to observe and hear the chairman's participation and comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the accommodation. Wish I could be with you there, but things are developing very rapidly here. So I appreciate all the accommodations for me. Steve, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. For the record, Stephen Hennigan, Executive Director of the Lee County Port Authority. I'm going to do a presentation. Oh, there you are. Give us one moment, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
All right. Before I introduce the item, I want to just introduce some of the people that we have here today with us. First, starting off with Atkins, we have Paul Witt and there's Darren. We have contingent from Manhattan, John Rahan, and Brian, and EG Solutions. We have Kyle here as well, or I'm sorry, Kelly here as well. I think it's important just to kind of start off with the designer. Just to remind everybody of this project was Atkins. You have the CMGC is Manhattan, so Manhattan is constructing this project. Some of the ongoing items, probably at this point close to 19, 20 months, extensive meetings with both Atkins and Manhattan from the executive level and the field level. We have Parsons on site working as our owner's representative, and that's George over there raising his hand. So when we say George, he's now synonymous with our Parsons, and he has his team acting on the Port Authority's behalf. We've also had a great partnership and gotten some assistance from the county and Dave Harner's staff, which we've appreciated, as well as sharing and going over extensive documentation with all of the board members who requested it. So getting into the first administrative item, item one is a request motion to approve a contract extension with Manhattan to March 31st, 2029 for the completion of the RSW Terminal Expansion Phase 1 project for $307,653,291. And the second part of this is approve an increase for the total project budget by $346,792,083. So I want to give some quick background, kind of how we got to today. Prior to September 2023, there were some questions regarding the structural design from Atkins that Manhattan and Atkins and the Port Authority were trying to rectify. About 6 months prior to September 23, Manhattan secured a third-party engineering firm, PRC, and they did an extensive structural review of the design, and that's when that September 23 timeframe, it was presented and accepted that there were structural design errors that needed to be rectified. That next bullet down, Atkins, again, as the designer engineer of record, has been redesigning that project or this project since that time, September 23. And at this point, Manhattan has determined that an additional 43 months is needed to complete the project. Manhattan has negotiated with all the subcontractors on behalf of the Port Authority for the additional cost of the redesign, and that both Atkins and Manhattan have indicated that they are ready to proceed with the project per the schedule and cost. I'm going to just kind of go through a couple of the items, explaining how you got to this cost and the differences between the original project and this project. So part of the structural peer review, the TRC report, found essentially four areas of concern. First one is concrete reinforcing with some of the tension strength, some uplift on floor loading, was being wind requirements. The high barrel roof, there were some questions that were redesigned there, as well as some bracing and floor capacity in some of the mechanical roofs. So what this slide represents is if you look in the blue is the item that was not impacted by redesign. So I think this graphic really gives a scope of how much has been looked at and changed or amended over the last 19 months. Down at the lower left, you'll see 110,000 additional fabrication hours, 440 tons of new steel, 26% more steel than original. 1,982 items had to be redesigned totally, and then all 66 of the trusses were modified. From a redesign, just kind of again get an understanding of what's transpired. The original Atkins design is in the yellow. That was the original bolt-on connection, and I know that there's been some various drawings and walks with commissioners. The green is the new connection requirement. So those are those big metal plates, and then the bolts that go all the way through the columns to reinforce the column structure to be able to hold the weight. One of the other items that there were some questions as to why is it a 43-month duration. The first roughly 15 months, we have to take some things down and reinforce some items. So this is a two-section, a lower level and an upper level. This represents about 80 columns that have to be reinforced with carbon. Some are in the terminal, some are forward-facing, some are behind the wall. But just kind of get a quick understanding of what is needed. The area highlighted in yellow is one of our columns. So everything in front of that, the bag belt, the conduit, the firewall, all that needs to be removed so that wall can be fitted with carbon. And that's in our baggage area. On the inside, the yellow is on the left side, on the opposite side of that wall, also needs to be fitted with carbon. So from an impact and a time standpoint, you got to work around baggage carousels. So that's where the passengers collect their bags, go up through the roof because it's a drop ceiling. So all that takes time. So as part of, again, that first 15 months and why is it a 43-month duration, it's items like this, the 80 different locations that have to have something very impactful done. Some of the demolition that needs to be done is just two representative pictures. The concrete on the left and right, there's more than just this. But just for the concrete alone, needs just over 16,000 hours, or actually not just concrete, but over 16,000 hours of demolition time. So there's a significant amount of time to take things down that were already built to be able to build back based on the new design. I wanted to throw back up the cost breakdown. You'll see two cost breakdown slides. This first one you've seen before. This is the math to get us to the $307 million. So the subcontractor costs, the CMGC fees, the in-contract allowances. The allowances are items that are in design or something like the carbon fiber. Those are the things that we know need to occur. That's kind of the maxed out price there, with the intent of having that be lower. And then our contingencies, obviously, for the items that we don't foresee at this time, which gets us to that $307 million price there. just some cost comparisons I thought was important to kind of show the difference between original and then added. Just look at the Baker concrete, an added cost of concrete. We've already spent 18, almost $19 million. We're going to need approximately $13.5 million more. The steel, we're buying 41, almost $42 million more steel on down the line. And when you look at the total cost, just to go back a slide, 173 million for subcontractor costs. Those 5 items alone right there account for almost $138 million of this project. So a lot of increase just right there with the primary things of the steel and the concrete. From a total project budget, how we get to that second part of the item. So you have your Manhattan contract that was on the previous page. Item number 2, which is Atkins. 3, EG Solutions for our CEI service. Our project support services, which is Parsons. That one was awarded a couple months back. And then a $10 million contingency. So this contingency is part of our extension to be able to go out if we need to do more work with Parsons or any of our other consultants. It gives us some wiggle room there, but it allows us to have that kind of placed, if you will, from a budgeting standpoint. Doesn't mean we will spend that contingency, but at least it's there and accounted for. One of the questions that came up was impact to ticket costs. And this is the slide, I'm going to have a secondary slide so you don't need to strain your eyes, that shows the numbers. This is the slide that we threw up during the bond presentation. And it shows how our CP, our cost per employment, is factored with our current bonding. So this is that lower line. And if you see on the left, 22, 23, 24, those are the years that we had the COVID offset funds. And you all know that we maximize those funds ending in fiscal year 24. So then our cost per employment goes back up to, call it more normalized. From a ticket cost standpoint, that first bullet with a star, airlines put airport fees in a budgeted line item called other rent and landing fees, and sometimes it'll say landing fees and other rent. The 7% average is the average across all commercial airports. So less than 7%, and they put other things besides airport fees in there, but less than 7% of an airline's fees are associated with airport costs. A lot of it is labor, equipment, airplanes are expensive, fuel. The important thing to recognize, though, is with our bonding capacity, our cost per employment would go up approximately $4.40 on top of that $17.35, but that wouldn't start until 2029. With that, $350 million as part of our 10-year airline agreement, they guarantee us a 1.4 debt coverage ratio. This basically maxes or gets us at that 140 or a little bit beyond that, on that side, 140, 1.4. So that kind of starts getting into the airline responsibility. That doesn't say that we can't cover our costs, but it triggers different mechanisms and kind of reconciliations with the airlines, because ultimately our airlines are our partners, and they help with this whole funding source. Work completed. There's been a lot of work done since the project started. The remote loading dock, over on the west side of the airport, the atriums have been demolished. The underground fuel lines, the pressurized fuel lines, gates C1 and C2 on down the line on the left. The items that are still in progress, the first one is that structural welding. If you think back to that slide that had the yellow and the green, that's a lot of the work that's ongoing right now. The TSA office build out is one of the enabling projects. The elevators have to move. That's in the front of the building. Some more utilities there, and then the administrative office renovations once the elevators and the stairwells are in place. Excuse me. Even though it's a 43-month duration, there has been a lot of improvements working with Manhattan, working with Atkins, Emily, and staff to streamline how we were originally constructing this project versus how we are going to be moving forward. I think that first one, 18 phases down to 4, is very important because we're going to be, we took a different look, a different lens, how to be more productive, work as much as we can 24 hours a day, things of that nature. The relocated temporary checkpoint was originally going to be outside of in the new build. We're going to be taking over inside of our current footprint, which will help speed things up. The tower cranes instead of the track cranes, and then day and night work, which will be huge versus last time. Now, again, just a quick look at what 43 months entails. Phase 1 is broken into 2 subparts, A and B. So we have the structural redesign that carbon fiber I was showing, the civil and apron work, excuse me, that 5-lane temporary checkpoint, some elevators, and a stairway. And then we start getting into phase 2, 3, and 4 when you see the real demolition and the structural expansion going up. So the items in phase 1 is basically taking things off, making the structure more structurally sound with the carbon fiber before we can build up in phases 2, 3, and 4. So that brings me to the end of item 1, and I'm willing to take any questions you might have. And real quick, I'm going to have Zach take down the slideshow so you can see the commissioner, if that's okay. Okay. Oh, I think you're muted, Commissioner.
Questions for Steve?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Steve?
Oh, I have one, Mr. Chair. On that construction schedule where we were going to go to the 5-lane temporary checkpoint,
Yes.
is that going to be the only security checkpoint for the whole airport at that point, or?
No, sir. So that checkpoint will take the footprint of existing C and move it in front of Shula's. There's some work, so Shula's will be taken away essentially. That footprint will be utilized for queuing and for TSA equipment. And then the other 2 concourses will still have their checkpoints. So we will still maintain 3 checkpoints throughout the duration.
Okay, good. Thanks. That answers my question.
Steve, what was the original time frame on this project for completion? What was the original estimated time?
I believe 36 months.
And how far are we into the 36 months?
I think we started right about the halfway point. Or I'm sorry, stopped at about the halfway point.
So we're 18 months, yeah,
Give or take.
into the 43 months.
Oh, no, right now.
No, what I'm asking is our timetable. What was the length of time we thought it was going to take to complete this project originally?
It would have been done October 27th.
And
So
how long was
36
that time?
months. 3, yes.
So we're already 36 months plus into or this October.
Yes, it would have been this past October, so we are
Over
what?
36.
Over
months.
36
40
months.
something months
Yes,
into
sir.
it already.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the proposed 48-month schedule that's being before us today adds 48 months on top of today.
It would be so the 48 is the last 4 months plus 43, but yes, it would add 43 additional dates should it move forward from today.
I believe it said March of 29.
Expedite the demolition part of the 15 months that we first started to after today. Is there a way to expedite that demolition part of the 15 months? I know this is an operational interior, but at the same time, you do an interior and exterior at the same time.
So one of the things with the 18 phases down to 4, it was kind of little segments, and originally it was going to be built. You know, the structural steel was going to be outside that space finished, and then coming back. What doing the initial demolition to get the checkpoint up sooner. So basically, Shula's to Nathan's Hot Dog, if you can visualize that space in there, that would be the temporary checkpoint. And then once that's done, there would be a walkway built out, essentially through the window into the concourse. Once that's done, everything to the right, all the way down to like Dylan's Candy, that whole area would allow it to be constructed and demoed quicker which was part of that rephasing. So we think that that would achieve that based on the look. But obviously, if there's anything else that we find that's quicker,
I
we're going
just
to do
know
that.
day and night work, so we doing the day too. Because I know the
Yes.
past, we were, if you go back to 3 years ago, this first started, I think we were kind of sensitive. The airport manager trying to keep people out of construction from having the day and people here and keep the nice environment at the airport, which is great. But now we're in a position where time is critical.
Yes.
So I think it's really important to be work day and night. So just wait till after hours to do it. Because I think the struggle with the contractors 3 years ago was they were unlimited to do certain work at night, and that was really limiting the project. And here we are
Right.
3 years later. So.
Right, and that's reflected as well in the phasing.
Steve, also, one other question, that just, I think he's answered is, what took so long after the mistake was found? What took so long for us to get a plan? And do we have a completed plan that, to start back? Well, in other words, originally we were told as a board that we were looking at, 60, 90 days and we would have that. So I think it's important to get on record. What took so long? What took us this amount of time to get to this point, 15 months approximately later, to get a plan? What's the reason for that?
That reason was the Atkins redesign took that long to get us to this point now. There are still a few items that they're wrapping up, some of the architecture. They're continually engineering some of those columns. We started off with more than the 80, I think it was 125, 26, trying to get efficient, but it took Atkins that long to do the redesign.
How long did it take them originally to give us the design? Once they were, how long did the original plan take from the time they were okay to do the plan? How long did that take?
I believe the first was about 18 months or so.
So it took basically almost double the time to do it again.
Yes.
It just seems to me first that I think is one of the things that's really kind of tough for me to deal with in this whole thing is the fact that I've been involved in projects that have had engineering, mistakes made. But I just can't believe that it would take that long to fix a mistake that was made originally when you know it's your mistake, or I'm assuming you would know it's your mistake. It's just very hard for me to understand. Not only is the time, but it's also the amount of money that it's cost this Lee County constituents for the amount of time it's taken for them to get us a plan, which we still don't have a plan that is 100% ready to build. That's just unbelievable to me. Most of the time when those mistakes are made, you can correct them in a reasonable amount of time. A reasonable amount of time should have been the 60 to 90 days. So I just want to make sure we have that on the record as well. So, all right.
Steve,
Sure.
did I just hear you say that they're still working on column design and current engineering? Tell me, rewind the tape on the
Yeah.
bones and the
So we've started off
engineering right now, please.
Yes. So, I think the term they used was value engineering when we all met. That they were still looking at ways to gain efficiencies, lower costs, speed up the process. So, now we're at 80. We were again closer to 125 plus of those columns that needed the carbon fiber. With the new layout, my understanding is the architectural drawings are still being finalized. Something like does the PV go here or 5 feet to the left or right? Those items are still work in progress, which is where those allowances come in. We know that there's some segment of work still being finalized. We've accounted for it, and it's in the budget.
So I think we can all agree that this is, again, we all want to see the success of this project as quickly as possible and responsibly and safely, of course. But this is the greatest economic vision that we have here in Lee County. But I think we're at a crossroads right now where we're looking at it. And unfortunately, we said before, right now our customer service interruption, you guys mentioned earlier, right now our customers haven't experienced negative delays in their life. It's still the life they've always had at the airport when they come here to visit us. Right now, if we continue with this plan, in the next 12 months, 10 of the businesses that service us and our customers are going to be closed. Some of the people are going to be out of work. Some of those businesses will be losing money. the customers will be disrupted. No matter how it goes, there's going to be disruption. But if we don't have a good plan and deliverables at this point, and we start invading our customers' lives with this work now, I'm concerned that people will get happy with us. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Is look at Vicky and the communications team. But if you look at what we've done for the Terminal E project, with the outreach, with the media, with the videos, with our staff downstairs, with our wayfinding, the signs that our sign plan. You threw it up. Hey, this doesn't work. Smart minds have a good plan. We need to fix it because it's not intuitive like we thought. So those items will continue with this project because it has to. Because people are used to coming in, dropping their bags, and hitting the left, going to wherever they're going. Now they're going to need to go to the right, and that'll be might be confusing for some people. It'll be different. It gets to the same end point, but again, through the wayfinding, through the outreach, through the boots on the ground with our staff, with our great red vests that we have out there providing customer service. That's how we're going to tackle that because there will be impacts. It would be short-sighted to say, there won't be impacts. People will be impacted, but it's not going to be, a huge bad thing. It's just going to be something different, and we'll have to manage that.
Oh, change is always hard, right? But it's a lot different when you're willing your case over and
Yes.
plywood and through caution tape versus
Right.
where we are right now. So we need to make sure we don't lose sight of this opportunity to make sure that we get this right because we're going to start impacting our customer service at a point that's going to be disruptive. And I want to make sure we have that considered. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, Steve, do you have any sense of the stuff that we're waiting on from Atkins to finish the plans? Is this stuff that's going to be worked out in the field, or is this stuff that we should have had by now? Like, do you need to have this in order to get under construction? Or?
No. So Manhattan and Atkins have both indicated that they have more than what they need to get this, kind of rolling tomorrow, if you will. The items still under design are the items once this deal's up, once it's dried in. Again, they're still looking at a couple of the other columns again, just to try and save money where we can. But those are items down the road. So we know that we have, 2 years or so. Should be more than enough time to figure out where, your architectural design elements are need to go now versus original.
Because my biggest, concern, right now is that we would move forward with this, which I think you did a great job of explaining the timeline and how we got to where we are today. But my biggest concern about it is that we say, okay, let's go, let's move forward, and then in about 12 months we find, hey, those plans they never did get to us. Now we're still waiting on more information so that we can continue building. I don't want that to happen. What could you say or do? How can you give me some comfort that we're going to be on it? I mean, is that something Parsons can help us also shepherd through the process? I mean, I guess I want to just keep the project. I want to know that once we say go, the project's going to keep moving and we're never going to have a delay again.
Yeah, I think it has to be collaborative. So we have gone out extension of staff, our owner's representative, George, with Parsons, as opposed to Parsons and there's George. But George is our boots on the ground. He is the one, hopefully if this moves forward, we'll be able to get some more, horsepower, more staff to supplement. But it's also honest conversations. Manhattan is saying they're ready. Atkins is saying they're ready. They both acknowledge, that there's some things to finish up along the way. We've all had the conversations with them that they're locked in and committed to doing this project, and it comes down to essentially their word. Are you ready to go? They both indicated they are.
Is that okay for us to ask questions, Ms. Chair?
Sure.
You said, did I hear you correctly say that it was like double the time to make all the corrections to the original plan?
No,
Or how long it took when Commissioner Greenwell was saying, how long did it take to get this design?
Okay, so
Start and then.
yes, okay. So original build was approximately 36 months. This one is 43. Of that first 12, 15 months is part demolition and then part rebuild.
Okay. So my question is, are we sure that this is the right design that is attaching to this building? Or, I mean, maybe it's not the right design. Can this building sustain everything that we're trying to attach to it? Because we're having to do a lot of reinforcing. That's my concern. That's taking so long for them to come back. I just feel we need strong reassurance that this is the right design for this, for what we're doing.
So Atkins has indicated that it is designed properly, and Manhattan said it is buildable. So, you know, I would defer to both of them, but they have both indicated that that would be factual.
But we're still not even through
The
with shoring up everything and having a here's the final plans, go build it. That's my concern.
Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
Back to what Commissioner Hammond was leading to, that kind of the same questions. But my concern is, sitting here back in 2016, we first approved to look at this and make this decision. And later on through the years, we made the decision. We approved the final plans. It was done. Started constructing it. Now we're waiting 15 months to tear down what we already built once. Pay for it again. And I was told before today, though, the plans were done, ready to be built. They can start building it tomorrow. But I was saying earlier that there's still some parts of it you still got to go back and wait on the final approval. Because my concern is starting again, and a year later, I think that's what Robbie's getting to. Oh, there's some structural plans here. It's going to cost more money, more demolition. You're going to go back and tear down again. That's my concern now because of what I thought before today. I was told my briefing that we're ready, everything's done 100%. It's signed, sealed, and it's ready to be built. If not, why are we approving something out without something being ready to be built with the correct engineered plans?
So it was so the the design that was shown up there, all the structural, all of those items, that has all been designed, and with the interior, so like everything in this room, and I'm probably oversimplifying this, is what needs to be kind of finalized, and they're still looking at some of the columns in the building to make sure that they have the most cost-effective method to secure that. It's not a lot. So, I don't have the number off the top of my head. I don't want to give you bad data, but they are finalizing that portion of the design.
The date done for the date for that to be done, completed.
I don't have that with me. No. Is there?
Active if I had to buy that? I mean, because I was told before today that everything is completed and ready to be built. So again, why move forward if we don't have that completed plan yet?
So they are Atkins or?
If somebody can answer that question, sorry. I was told everything was approved, engineered, approved, structurally ready to go.
For the record, Darren Larson with Atkins Realis. And the question, as I understand it, is how long before?
Yes.
So the remaining design work is really just minor architectural details and coordination that it's essentially done at this point. We are updating the architectural drawings to create what we call a conform set, which just reflects that all the changes have been fully incorporated. Right now, we're scheduling to complete that sometime during the month of April. But that's not for work that Manhattan would be starting to do for several months or potentially years. All the details for the imminent work are complete, and they have been for several months.
So the time would be when? The question is how long?
Within a month.
Okay. So none of that work between now and the end of the month would affect the structural integrity of something that Manhattan come back later and say, we can't build this after all, it's going to fall down.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Wouldn't affect it at all.
Not at all.
Based upon what's happened with the timeline, why was it done sooner before today?
Which part?
What's pending to be finished?
These are just minor architectural coordinations. So that was not the focus of the redesign. The focus of the redesign was just making sure that the major structural and architectural elements were correct, and they are, and they have been for quite some time.
I understand, but $340 million is not minor to me, so I'm just trying to find out how to justify the $348 million and wait. It's still not 100% secure that it's going to be built based upon the current plan, based on what's happened in the past. So it's my concern.
The plans that are completed and on file with the building department are the correct plans and they're ready to be built.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, so Darren, I just want to circle back on this because something doesn't make sense to me right now. It was posed to us with Steve's presentation that we're in a value engineering step for building columns. Did everybody hear that same way? Right? I'm not sure I want the columns of the building to be built as cheap as possible. Okay. Um, and if that's still on the table of how many we're going to fix and how we're going to do it, and that's basically the reason this project has been on hold, because the bones of the structure, either the existing structure wasn't built big enough, the new work wasn't designed properly, and how it fit together in between, and how it's done. We can chicken or egg whose fault it is of the work and ship in between that to be done over later. But how can you say today, after being on this job for almost 9 years, that we still are re-engineering columns and expect this board to take you at your word that we have buildable plans? And how would we price it otherwise?
Okay, that's a good question, Commissioner. So the work that's going on right now relative to the columns is not re-engineering. It is the carbon fiber that's being added to certain columns within the existing building to strengthen them is an application that goes on the face of the column, and it's adaptable. You can do different numbers of layers, different patterns of the material. And so what we're doing right now is optimizing that to make sure that we minimize the impact to features within the existing building. Some of what Steve showed in his photos, like existing conduits, ductwork, different things like that. If we can avoid it by modifying the carbon fiber design, that's the kind of work we're doing now. It's not a structural modification of the design. It's to optimize the work so that it minimizes the impact to the existing building as you're doing it.
So if I may follow up, if we have to do, what percentage of the existing structure do we have to demolish and rebuild again? Because that's going to affect some of these column points that we're talking about re-engineering here.
When you say
How it
existing,
comes apart.
when you say existing structure, you're talking
The
about.
rebuild that we're taking down to rebuild over again is going to affect the work areas where those columns had deficiencies that you noticed last year that our building was in a improper condition. Has that particular notice of noncompliance been 100% resolved and engineered to date?
I think you asked me multiple things there. I'll go to the amount of existing work that needs to be demolished and reconstructed. I believe there are 4 columns, and with those columns, there's 6 interior beams associated with those, and then maybe 8 other beams that have to be demolished and reconstructed. And that's to accomplish multiple things, including what you were alluding to, which was the repair related to some of the cut rebar.
So if we haven't even exposed the work back to that point to know how it's going to go apart and what's going to be left over at that point, and we don't have a solution because we aren't there yet, how can you say that I have 100% structural plans today?
We actually do. We do have a solution for that. I'm not sure which part of that you're referring to that we don't have drawings for.
As of last week, we were still working on notice of noncompliance 58 for structural deficiencies in the building. A week ago, we didn't have the plans. We were told months ago we had the plans to Commissioner Pendergrass's point earlier. And we keep hearing historically that we keep being told we're going to have good plans tomorrow. But I still don't even hear it today after nearly 9 years on the job that you have good plans. We're testing limits of our building, and I don't hear you saying I have 100% buildable plans in my ear today.
But to be clear, I am saying we do have 100% buildable plans.
Right. So, could you offer us an analogy or some sort of clarification as to what this conforming drawings is that you're talking about, the architectural conforming drawings? Then, what are those compared to the 100% buildable plans that you say we already have? Do you have a? Can you put it in a plain English like analogy that we would understand?
Yes, I can do that, Commissioner. So throughout the construction process, the contractor will ask questions and clarifications about the design.
Mhm.
And as we do that, we will make minor modifications to the drawings, and we draw a cloud around those minor modifications on the drawings. What we're doing in a conform set is we're taking all of the compilation of all of those questions and the minor modifications to those drawings and incorporating them into a new issued clean with no clouds, no revisions on it set of drawings. But it's the same information that's already been communicated between the architect and the engineer and the contractor. It's just kind of a reset, clean set of drawings.
So would a good analogy be like you have a contract that's been redlined and edited, okay, and then now we're gonna take that at the end and we're gonna do a clean version of the contract so that we can just have one before we vote on, okay, this is a clean version of what it looks like. Is that that's an analogy that I could use that would be?
Yes, that's a very good analogy.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
uh, a clarifying question first. Parsons is responsible for the oversight on the redesign, is that correct? Not for the oversight on the redesign?
No, the redesign is the responsibility of Atkins.
Well, I know the design is, but we have this oversight, what is Parsons' responsibility then?
So Parsons has a couple different things. Right now they have about 4 tasks. The first one is kind of going over what's taken place to help with our review and arrears. They're looking at the critical path analysis, what's been going on with the subcontractors, how we're sharing information. There's an audit component with contracts and processes related to it. How can we get more efficient with how we're doing things so we can implement those going forward? And then kind of our concept of operations plan. The one thing that is outstanding, which was what I talked about in the contingencies, is we haven't launched anything farther than that without knowing the outcome of today. We didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. So things like project management,
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
we signed a contract with Atkins to design the airport terminal expansion project, and we agreed on a price to do that. We got a defective design, and now we have to redesign the terminal building, and we're having to pay millions of dollars for the redesign. So I'm not understanding that if someone draws a design and that design is defective, how can they expect us to pay for their mistake of redesign? And I saw on your chart millions of dollars going to redesign the airport terminal expansion. So why is that?
I'll have Robert Henry.
If I may, Chair.
Sure.
The way to think about this is in two ways. First, the board contracted with Atkins to do a design. That is a now closed contract, and so we have the design. Then what we do is we hire Atkins to do what's called contract administration, and so they're there so that when Manhattan is building it and Manhattan has questions, they're there to make those changes. And so that is two separate buckets, let's call. So in the future, when we start talking to all the parties about this project, and hopefully avoid litigation and come to some agreement, the design part of that is what we're going to be talking about being deficient, and we're going to try and call back. There's been no issues as far as the contract administration that Atkins has done and is going to do going forward. That's a separate item. And so what you are approving now is the 12 million or so for Atkins for the next 4 years to review this project, answer the questions for Manhattan, and be able to move forward. What we'll have to deal with is the design deficiencies, which are a whole separate item. And so their ability to review and answer the questions with Manhattan, I mean, that's something for staff to talk about, but they've been doing that for 4 years. They've been doing that in this build up to today. And then with approval, we'll continue to do so.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so, as it's saying, we do have a buildable set of plans now. So my question is, has the contractor signed off on these plans that they reviewed them and they don't see any issues to go out and build?
They have indicated they are here.
Not indicate, have they signed off?
Could they come to the podium and say that?
Mr. Chair?
Sure, absolutely. Please.
Taller than I am. Good morning. My name is John Rayhan, president of Manhattan. So your question about the plans, yes, we have spent the better part of the last 18 months with a design firm working alongside to review their drawings, to review their designs, to confirm that it is executable in the field, and we feel very confident, 100% confident that we can execute it.
The question was, because I'm a believer in signatures, have you signed off on those plans?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Have you signed off on the previous set of plans?
Yes, we have.
So you signed off, but you didn't realize the deficiency existed until you got into the construction phase.
That is correct.
How did you discover the deficiency in the first place?
So when we typically what happens in our field is we take those design documents and we create fabrication drawings, and we engage structural engineers to help us with the detailed calculations of what it's actually going to take to build and fabricate the structure in this case. And as we got further and further into the details, we began to find more and more issues that made it difficult for us to put it all together. And it got to the point where it was that we hired a third party structural engineer to review the plans with us. And it was at that point that we started doing this third party review that all this started to surface.
Mr. Chair, may I ask?
Yes.
Clear something up, if you would, please. Stephen, you mentioned that each Bravo, Charlie, Delta concourses were going to have their own separate TSAs, or are we still talking about one common for all three terminals?
During construction, each one will be open as they are today. At the end, we will have one. Well,
yeah.
One until E opens up. Yes.
Thank you. And then, does this have to be re-permitted?
It's been through the permit process.
It has been, or is going through, or?
It has. Yes.
Chair, question.
Yes.
This is Steve. Okay, so Steve, we've been talking the last hour about what happened in the past. We understand what happened in the past. There's obviously some aggravating sessions early on after this was determined. Thank you, Manhattan, for finding that, because I hate we would have got long farther in building being completed and not be able to go into the building. But if based upon what's before us, it's region on it. If these items fell, we have two choices either way. We either move forward with it or it fell. If it fell, what would be the plan then? What would be the roadmap? What would happen in the future if we had to go back and start over again?
Basically, if this fails, there's kind of a series of events that will take place. The first one is we'll need to button up the building. So all of that work that is still in progress, we'll need to finish. So we're looking probably $25+ million, 6 to 8 months to finish that work. Followed by that, we'd have to go. Depends on which way the board goes. If we had to procure a new architect and engineer, that's a 2-year process. That'd be probably another $30 million. The design, probably another 2 years to design. somewhere in that time frame, there's still the demolition of existing work that would need to take place, so that might be an overlap there. And then the rebuild cost, who knows what that price would be? Probably north of $350 million, and you're still looking at a 3-year time frame. So when you put that all together, once everything's said and done, you're probably looking at 6-7 years and upwards of $500 million.
Steve, Chairman, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah. Steve, can you explain the bonding situation under this contract with Atkins? I'm just curious what was required to bond this job between Atkins and what bonds might be there for Manhattan. What bonds are required
Moving forward,
before first contract?
first contract, do you have the bonds there?
Yeah, bonds. In other words, if there, under construction, if there's a failure or problem, that's a remedy.
Performance bonds.
Yeah.
Oh, for Atkins would have had their bond for design, which is usually $1 million or $2, and then Manhattan would have had their performance bond. I don't have that number off the top of the head. I'm sure I can bring them down. They would know that better, but it's not a huge number like you're probably alluding to.
Okay. Is there a reason for that? That it's not, I know under many jobs you're required to bond,
right,
as a general contractor or as a engineering firm. Under these circumstances, you bond to protect the consumer. That if the job is not done properly, or there's a failure, then you could go pull, claim the bond. It seems like this amount of money. So I guess what's got me thrown off here is it seems like very minimal amount of bonds for the amount of money that this project was going to cost. Is that normal practice?
Yeah. So typically with a design, they'll bond to a percentage of the design. So if that's $20 million to design, 10% is $2 million. So that's what that bond would be for. The outcome is not typical of what we're experiencing now. So that's why you don't have that coverage, because this is vastly abnormal.
Can I follow up on that, please?
Sure.
But on the Manhattan side, you'd have a performance and payment bond for whatever the first $330 million of the contract, right? And that bond still exists. You got to put that
right
to sign the contract. So
correct.
That performance and payment bond for $330 million exists, and they have to put up another bond for another $350.
Correct.
On top of that.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
Okay. So this might be for Manhattan, but I'll ask. Actually, I have a question in Manhattan, if we might.
Sure. Go ahead, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here we are again.
Is that a mic drop? Yeah. So, can you tell this board as of today? You just said I have good prints, and I know what I'm building. I have the prints I need. So we can rely. You said we can rely on your, as Roger sort of mentioned. You sign off on it, correct?
Correct.
So does that mean this contract and this bid and this timeline we have today is a hard timeline that you're guaranteeing today?
Yeah, I mean, we are committed 100% to completing the job within the budget and within the schedule that we have provided you. Yes, that is a promise.
No change orders, no extensions.
Well, we know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. There's going to be things that we encounter. Okay, we have hurricanes. We have things.
Force majeure aside, do you guarantee everything else?
Yes. Yeah, we are comfortable with the design. We feel good about our plan to execute, and we're ready to execute it and get it done on time and within your budget. We'll work very hard to reduce that budget for you.
Are you guaranteeing it not to exceed this duration and this much money? Period.
Within our control.
You sure?
Within our control, yes.
Follow up.
Yeah, Chairman, yes, I'd like to follow up. Manhattan, the name's always been thrown around a lot, and I want to commend you guys for catching this, because we could have been way longer into this project before it was called. And I want everyone to understand that. So even though we've talked a lot about Manhattan, it seems to me that you've done what has been asked. So I just wanted to say that because I feel
Thank
like
you.
you guys are getting pounded pretty hard because that name's constantly coming up. Um, but obviously, you guys have done great work in the past. Unfortunately, this was kind of unforeseen. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
let you guys know that we're not trying to beat up on Manhattan because you're a quality company. We're just trying to reassure that the people, the constituents that we represent in this county are getting what they deserve, and you're going to be a big part of that if we vote this forward. That we expect this to get done on time and get done in the budget as much as possible. We understand there's unforeseen, but hopefully we don't have this kind of unforeseen because this is pretty tragic, really.
There's no one more motivated than us to help you do exactly that.
And respectfully, I'm not here to beat up anybody at all, but I am trying to reaffirm a lot of these things that we've asked about. I do feel really good that you're guaranteeing our success outside of force majeure. And I found your original presentation in 2016, and it might have been optimistic 9 years ago to say we had a 10-month schedule to build this. It was our goal to design at that point side by side. 5 years ago, we were told it was a 3-year build, and now we're told 9 years into the job that we just needed 4 years to finish it. So forgive us for wanting to pull that up and make sure that we don't have a fourth meeting about this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Should we be looking at our bond requirements going into the future? And because we are doing such large projects, that maybe what's traditional isn't adequate.
you're talking about the design side of the body?
Yes.
So
I personally definitely think it's something we should look to in the future, to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
We have to learn from our mistakes, and not necessarily blaming anyone, but the bottom line is this is like I said, this is a pretty messed up deal.
I just have, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
one more question for Steve here. In our because there was a mention of Athens has two separate components or two separate projects that they're supposed to do, and in here it said that Athens has refused to provide continued construction administration slash engineer of record services without additional compensation. Has that been rectified?
So that's item number 2 in here.
Well, should we rectify that before we do this?
How much compensation are they looking for?
So
I don't have a clue.
so the
But
CEI
you gotta
is,
have somebody do the construction administration.
so the design is one part of their task. The construction engineering aspect, construction administration is a separate item for them. So that was, it's the 12.9. Again, it's the next agenda item that we've put the $3.3 million that they provided us earlier to that cost for that aspect of work. They view that as a different aspect of work. I know that legal has some opinion on that moving forward, but that is one of those items that we will need since they are the engineer of record to continue forward with if we want to do this project.
Maybe the county attorney can give us a little bit more background.
So let me add a little more depth to what I added earlier. So in the design portion of this, that was the initial contract that Atkins had that is completed. So then we contract with them to essentially oversee. And so it could be seen as like two different companies that were doing the same thing. And so the way to look at this new CA is as if a new company came in and was going to review it. while St. Atkins in general is a different set of work and scope and contract that they're doing. And that's why it is work that we're requesting and it's work that we should pay them for. Now, at the end of all of this, when we try to claw back what should be appropriate as far as payments back to the port for work that shouldn't have been charged to us, this is certainly something that would be put into that equation. Not just, oh, well, the design was insufficient, but stemming from that, what are all the additional costs that LCPA has had to incur because of that? So, while we have this 12 million in front of us, Atkins has already provided 3.3 million towards that. So, while the project budget is this large number, 3.3 of it is actually already being paid for by Atkins in this concession that the commissioner alluded to earlier. And so, again, that number we would try to get back later through our negotiations.
Council, if I may follow.
Sure.
Would that also include the cost of lost revenue and opportunity costs that we've lost in not being open as of October?
Certainly, everything's going to be on the table. This is why in the future it's going to be very important for us to look at everything holistically, grab everything we can, sit down at the table with our partners, and really dig into what this is. Part of the desire for the board and staff to bring on persons was to be able to do this look back, look through everything, look at the critical path, do an audit of everything essentially going back, and that'll help provide us that tool going forward. There may be more work that needs to be done, which is why the contingency will be helpful to be able to do that. There's all sorts of things that are still going to be on the table. The continuing on these contracts going forward keeps everything open for us to continue to look at.
So once you complete those negotiations, then it'll be brought back to the board for a final vote on that figure.
Yes, sir. Anything that we come to an agreement on would first need to be board approved.
So just so I'm clear, Parsons is helping us with the look back. Welcome again, George, to be at the meeting here. But during this audit review of the look back on this, if any party, whatever wrongs may have been done, whatever work needs to be done over whatever costs may have been imposed on us for any reason, for stored materials, workmanship, design, all those things can be looked at and discussed in your purview.
The key thing with Parsons is that they're coming at this without any preference. They're looking at it. What happened? This is what occurred. It's not their job to assign blame or assign liability. That is something that my office and working with potentially other parties can look at doing. But Parsons is there to just initially identify what happened, what went wrong, and provide that information to staff so that we can use that moving forward.
So they work directly for us in our best interest. They serve us first.
Yes, sir.
Atkins has their own engineering. The TRC report was an engineer that Manhattan hired for their interests. They didn't hire TRC to be our engineer, correct?
Correct. So everyone's going to go to the table with their own people, and we're all going to have to work this out. At the end of the day, though, I think everyone is on the same goal of get this project done and allow legal on the side while the project is being done to work on this particular solution.
Well, and with that being said, getting back to my original question, because it states in here that the project cannot proceed without these services. So is there some overlap with what EGS is doing for us? Because I know they're performing construction engineering inspection.
No, so Atkins designed the building.
Right.
Manhattan is building the building, and EGS makes sure that the building was built the right way. So with Atkins, if Manhattan has a design question as the engineer of record, Atkins, they have to adjust something. That's what their cost is, or a technical question. Whereas EG is making sure that the size bolt is the right size in the right place for the right tension, that your testing of concrete meets specs, that the lights are the right color, things of that. So
making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do to the
all the testing, yes.
So I guess again, I ask, do the board approve this first or approve that Atkins where they're going to be on those services for us? Because that's a major component to finish out. So,
I guess we might ask the board attorney if the order of the sequencing of the votes has an impact on the overall project. Or
We
not.
would, the votes are listed in order that we would like the board to proceed in. The items are listed in order, 1, 2, 3, for your approval.
thank
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Is Manhattan still at the podium?
They can be in 2 seconds.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Good morning. Maybe you could just go back and just to digress for a moment, talk about, how you actually went to TRC, secured them, the types of things you interact with them, the cost, and, how we identified where we are today. So maybe, I think it's good for the record for you to explain exactly how we got here.
Sure. I'm going to introduce Craig Bryant, who's the project director on the job. He'll
Sure.
explain it for you.
Sure.
Morning, Commissioner. Craig Bryant, Vice President for Manhattan. So the process started really through the shop drawing review process, vetting shop drawings, conducting correspondence with the engineer of record, asking for additional information so that we could fabricate steel members. There's a certain degree of information in the background, if you will, calculations, computer models, etc., that aren't a part of the contract documents that are necessary in order to complete that information on the subcontractor side. Once we started asking for that information, there were inconsistencies in that information that didn't make sense to the subcontracting engineers who were there to design shop drawings. Through a period of probably a year of hundreds of questions, we decided it'd be best to hire a third party as a path moving forward to engage them, really to do some outside analysis. We had a subcontractor telling us one thing, we had an engineer of record telling us something else. We were hiring this third party to provide an opinion of who was correct. And it was at that time that this engineer was of the opinion that there were inconsistencies in the design, and then we engaged him to do a full peer review of that design. So he created his own independent model based on the loading information provided by the engineer of record. And then that's what ultimately culminated into that September 2023 report that identified 18 major design deficiencies in the building. It took 6 months to remodel and investigate the existing design.
Follow up, if I may. So obviously you felt compelled to reach out to TRC and did that. And after their review, just walk me through how you engaged with Atkins, how you obviously interacted with them to get where we are and the whole redesign. Just for the record.
Of course. As that information was becoming available somewhere around August of 23, there were some immediate safety concerns. So we stopped work in areas due to safety concerns in August of 23, late August. In September, we provided Atkins and the Port Authority staff the full peer review report for review. And then we had a follow-up meeting with both Atkins and Port Authority staff. And in that meeting, Atkins acknowledged the report, and they had also come to the similar conclusion that they had some issues. And it was at that point that Atkins immediately started investigating the redesign of the building that went on until here recently.
Okay. And then obviously as a result, the structure peer review is how you identified so many different issues from concrete reinforcement to uplift to obviously, different high barrel roofs, all the things you had indicated in that slide. That was all determined then, right?
Correct. We actually have TRC here if anyone has any questions for the third party peer review engineer.
Sure, I'd love to have a few questions.
Hello, my name is Paul Marshall with TRC.
Hey, Paul, thanks for being here. Can you walk us through your initial engagement with Manhattan, exactly the things that you did to get us to where we were to obviously identify the deficiencies?
Right. So we were first involved in a very minor way to try to assist in um, construction feasibility and tasks. And then as we went on, as we said earlier, we were asked to do a full peer review.
Okay. And your peer review, just again for the record, took how long?
Somewhere in about 6 months range.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
thank you for being here and thank you for catching some of the things that regarding the safety issues on the building. Can you explain your relationship with Manhattan to the port on this analysis and how it was explained to me when I met with Manhattan last week that Manhattan hired you to do this peer review. It was also offered that as the owners, we could have hired our own version of you, so to speak, to review these reports to look out for our best interests as a third party. Can you explain the difference between those two, please?
Right. So my contract's with Manhattan. So I'm working directly for them, answering their questions. And so when Port Authority hires their own, it's in their best interest to protect Port Authority. So that's the contractual differences. Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay.
So you are a extension of Manhattan in this report.
Yes, that's correct.
Was the full report that you did turn over to the Port Authority?
Yes.
We have a full copy of that.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Discuss that with Atkins at the time you discovered the deficiencies.
Yes.
What was their reaction?
It's I'm not going to get into that. I'm not. They were definitely engaging and responsive.
So they agreed with your analysis.
Eventually, yes.
Was Manhattan on schedule or behind schedule in August of 23 when work stopped?
I can't answer that question. I'm not involved in the scheduling.
Answer that question, please.
At that time, there already had been some schedule impacts to the project. We had experienced a couple of hurricanes. There had been some other issues on the project that we had requested additional time for. So there were at that time, yes.
How far behind schedule were you?
I don't have the exact answer to that here today, but we
Was
can
it months
certainly
or a
provide that.
year? Or?
I don't have that exact answer, but we can certainly provide it.
I think it was 479 days in your PowerPoint. Was it last time?
Okay.
Yeah, some of that, Commissioner, did occur before or after that event in August of 23. But yes, that is the
I'm just quoting the last.
correct. You're correct.
Cameron, I got a question for our county attorney or port attorney, I guess, to get.
Sure.
Thanks, Cameron. So Rob and Andrew, you guys have reviewed the 3 items that we're going to vote on today in the contracts then?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me, is there anything, looking at it from the perspective of the Port Authority, that we can do to further mitigate our risks going forward or strengthen the protections for the Port Authority? Or do you believe that these contracts offer the fullest level of protections for us as we move forward potentially on this project?
We believe that the current contract provides us with a great deal of protection. We have edited out certain things moving forward, and based on our review at this particular time, we are we can move forward with the current contracts.
All right. I mean, I think, you know, just to kind of share some thoughts, obviously when you get into government projects, right? We get mad when we see how long they can go, especially when they go over time and over budget, right? And I think one of the things that really upsets all of us, and the reason why Doge has gotten so much attention, is exposing waste, fraud, and abuse. And so I came in here today, kind of looking for that, see if there was any potential for waste, fraud, and abuse here. And you know, what was presented today seems to present the fact that this was a just lightning strike almost, catastrophic, if you will, just mistake that was made by the on the structural design by the engineer of record, and it's something that sounds like it doesn't happen very often. Maybe even like I said, as often as a lightning strike would occur, right? But I also know that based on what we've done by engaging Parsons, we have also engaged more oversight now on behalf of the Port Authority to be an extension of staff to look for future opportunities for waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think we've put in a good protection for the traveling public who we're here representing today. Um, I think the other thing we look at is, do we have a good plan moving forward? Do we have a plan that the person who's going to build it, or the company who's going to build it, says that they can build with? And I think we got that answer at the podium today. Yes, I can build this plan. I can build what I have. We can execute it. So I heard that from the podium today. I also heard from the engineer of record that we have delivered the plans, and we feel good about them too. So I feel like, if you look at what we're being asked to vote on, a contract with our builder, a contract with our engineer of record, a contract with our CEI, sounds like everybody's got a good plan and is on board that this is the plan. In fact, I heard a high level of confidence from the builder that they felt like outside of force majeure, they could build this based on what they're proposing. So I heard that today. And then, I think the last thing that I think of is, have we done everything we can to mitigate the risk for the Port Authority by strengthening our contracts? Have we done everything we can to mitigate by adding even more oversight to watch the job going forward and to audit going backwards to understand what happened? And with the engagement of partners, with the assurances from our port attorneys, I feel like we have hit those boxes as well. And so, uh, I think this has been a great effort to have everybody kind of really looking under the hood here and inspect this thing thoroughly and find out what happened and what went wrong. And honestly, it is extremely disappointing to see how long it's going to take to get this finished. It's extremely disappointing to see the cost, but it sounds like to me this was almost like a once in a lifetime. Certainly the once in my political career time, seeing a mistake that was made that was this big, that caused this big of a delay and this big of a disruption. But it appears that we now understand what it is. We understand how to move forward, and we're mitigating the risk and providing more oversight moving forward. And so I guess that's where my head's at right now, and what I'm looking for.
Thank you for all of that, Commissioner. I agree with you, and it's unfortunate. I think all these votes that we have to do, like this vote today, like you said, we put everybody in place. It's kind of like a zoning case. You may not agree with it, but you have to agree with this what the law is. This is we have either two choices: either move forward with this, with the problem resolved and fixed, or stop and start over again and delay it even longer and cost even more money. So unfortunately, not like that part, the first part, but we have still the choice because of what happened in the past. We're trying to resolve and fix what's already occurred.
I brought this up in one of the past meetings, and obviously there's a lot of concern, disappointment, and so on and so forth. And Commissioner Hammond, I think, did a great job summarizing this. But I want to go back and one more time to say, understand the environment that everybody in this room is dealing with since 2020, from pandemic to 3-4 hurricanes. This has not been a clean slate in which to operate, for the last 4 years. So the timing is thrown off, personnel turn off, materials and costs are turned off. In part, that was, if those things had not happened, maybe it would have been a lot closer to our end game. So we've been reacting more than anticipating. And here's where we are today. And I think, from my perspective, um, the need to go forward and safely is paramount. But please remember that everybody in this room has been affected one way or another in the last 4 years. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman White.
Yeah, so I appreciate both what Commissioner Pendergrass and Commissioner Hammond said, as well as Mr. Sandelli. I'm on the same page. I mean, listen, it was really unfortunate. I'm very pleased with Manhattan getting involved as early as they did, obviously reaching out to a firm, obviously trying to identify all the structural items we have. Steve, I think you did a great job of presenting the issues, understanding the additional costs associated with this, understanding what the impacts might be. But we're at the road where if we go right, we proceed forward with this. If we go left, the timeframes really concern me. I've had reassurances in the room from legal all the way through to all the representatives. So I'm very comfortable moving forward with this.
Commissioner, if I may,
Yes.
first off, I want to applaud Manhattan and the commissioners for their forbearance, but Manhattan for finding this out. This was a life safety issue. And let's say everybody said, oh, we can't delay it, let's just build it, it'll hold. And 10 years down the road, roof collapses and kills 400 people. Okay, that's really the issue. So I just want to say, we're not used to problems. In my 9 years here, everything just goes smooth. We just say, rah, 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 everybody's great. And they've done a wonderful job. And the pressure they've been under is tremendous. But now it's going to get built right. And now we can confidently say that when it is finished and the additional money and the whole thing, nobody likes it, but we have confidence that we have a premier airport and it's serviceable for the next 30 or 40 years, hopefully. And this is not the first governmental project that had problems and caused overruns. So I think they've done a yeoman's job, really, under the circumstances.
Thank you, Randy.
Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I guess to kind of sum up my thoughts is the time frame is the most concern to me. Is the mistake is the mistake. The only thing we can do about what's happened behind us is make sure it never happens again. So that's the best we can do. And I think moving forward, it seems like we've tried to dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure that this doesn't happen again. But that still doesn't render the fact that there was a major mistake here. Period. That's just period. But we have to think about, as a board, moving forward, how does it affect the people in this county? And how does it affect this airport and all the visitors that have come to this airport? A project that should have took 3 years is now taking 7 or 8 years. We certainly don't want to make it 10. And that's the position we're in as a board, so it's very difficult. But I just want to make sure that we don't make excuses for the fact that there was a mistake.
Absolutely.
And I want to make sure that that's
The commissioner dropped off. Is he back on?
Yeah, I lost connection for a second. I apologize. So, any other discussion, gentlemen?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
So this board recently provided direction to Steve on multiple items we'd like to see implemented to cover the 2 areas of need on staffing and transparency. He instituted a series of staff changes to strengthen the oversight of the project. We brought in county staff, and we hired Parsons, my wife's Parsons, as a third party on this rep. Steve's committed to providing more open monthly reports from our partners and a notice that anytime more than $100,000 in contingency fees are spent. So we're proud of the things in an open, honest, instantaneous manner. And these are all positive changes. I think will keep us updated as to how things are going and to continue to keep us on track. With all those items in place that we've recently implemented here, the team together, looking out for this project And again, with the promises that Atkins has made to us today regarding their design plans, constructability, price, and deadlines, I'm willing to make a recommendation that the board approve these items.
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. Any public comment?
Yes, we have public comment. We have one speaker, Daniel Becker, and the other public comment will be after Daniel for this item number 1 that we just called for motion for.
Good morning. I'm actually going to be more broad, and cover all three items. So it's just the same, basically. Good morning. My name is Daniel Becker. I am a resident of District 2. Being a retired architect is different to be on the public side of a design construction issue like this. Over my 40-year career, I wrote and reviewed hundreds of design and construction contracts. I reviewed the packet provided as part of this meeting, Atkins North America's contract and Manhattan Construction's contract. There are provisions in those contracts for the Port Authority to terminate Atkins, Manhattan's, and EG Solutions agreements without cause. However, there are a lot of other less well-defined parts of those contracts that will have long-term project, financial, and legal implications if termination occurs. Without getting into the weeds, the long and short of it is, if you cancel or don't extend any of these contracts, open the taxpayer's checkbook, because the only ones to benefit will be the attorneys. Thank
you.
Any other public comment?
No other public comment. Come back to the chairman.
Chairman, if I may, could I just one comment real quick? I
Sure.
thought it was great holding up the checkbook. Good, real good leader there. But I do want to point out something that I think hasn't been mentioned at this meeting. So the Port Authority doesn't run on any property tax dollars. The Port Authority is kind of really interesting. It's similar to a business in the way that it runs on the revenue that it generates. So it runs on the revenue that comes in from the airlines leasing space. It runs on the revenue that it generates from people leasing land here. We even get, believe it or not, we even get a cut of the rental cars that are rented here. We get a cut of the Uber drivers who come through here, but we don't use property tax dollars to fund the airport. So the good news is we wouldn't need to open up the checkbook of Lee County's property taxpayers to fund anything. Now, that is not a get out of jail free, though, to be financially unresponsible, right? That's absolutely not any kind of a pass to be financially unresponsible. We are here to be a board representing the users of this airport, and it is covered by user fees, right? And so that's why I think we went through such a deep questioning today to try and make sure that we're putting in place the oversight and the safeguards and the risk mitigation that we owe the users of this airport. And so certainly that's very important to me that we understand that how the airport is funded, but that we are also working very hard to make sure that we stand up for the users of the airport.
I agree with your comments, Commissioner Hammond. I was certainly going to go do that, so I appreciate you putting that on the record. I think that's really important.
As long as my test is not in, I was going good.
So we close public comment. Any other comments by the commissioners? We have a motion on the floor, second. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, Steve.
All right. We'll throw it back up so everybody can see.
Yeah, it's item 2.
Yeah, item 2. I'm bringing it back up off of the board.
Wonderful. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Oh. Slide 20. Slide 20. This is item number 2. Approve an extension of Atkins Realis contract for construction administration engineering of record services in the amount of $9,657,618 for the completion of the RSW terminal expansion project.
bring the camera back up?
Or do you need the slide? Or
Yeah. Do you want me back up on screen, Mr. Chair, or roll?
And that, I'm fine. I'm fine. Any comment, any questions for Steve?
How did who determined and how was it determined the $3.3 million contribution?
That was a contribution that they provided us. That our legal staff and Atkins legal staff worked together to come to that agreement. Rob, you want to quickly hit on the finer points?
This board, as you may recall, about a year ago, as a show of good faith, Atkins presented a letter to the board, provided $3.3 million towards this issue. In working with them, we thought this was the best way to kind of apply that $3.3 million. And so as you can see, the total fees would normally be about 12.9, but staff will only have to pay out the 9.6.
When is that money dispersed?
Well, it's not that money is being dispersed; it's that they're going to take the credit, just take the credit for it. And it's essentially just like having store credit in a way.
Yeah.
That 3.3 will be put towards whatever the overall cost that they agree to pay to us. That 3.3 will be deducted from that bond.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Accepting the credit, are we giving up any future rights
No.
to recoup any losses? Because
We are not.
okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, can we have that
Yes.
back up one more time, please, regarding this matter? Just to follow up.
Go ahead.
And I want to thank you first and foremost. You've been very forthright and forthcoming with information and answer questions for me during what I consider a deep dive to catch up on this project, so I appreciate that. I think it was mentioned during some of our meetings at my office that this initial offer would indeed be scalable based on the final results of what was found to be defects and whatever those costs may be in the future. Is that correct?
That'd be the subject of a future discussion, I'm sure.
That was the initial finding. I think there was at that time a $10 million number was thrown out and an offer was made. And if those costs go up, it's still something that our council can still discuss with these items in the future.
And I think, Commissioner, I think those talks are a little premature and touch on the litigation side. What the 3.3 was just a good first step towards this.
Okay.
And Atkins all along has not said that 3.3 is the end all be all. One of the big things that they do want to do is once we moved on here and we're building is have a separate track with litigation to actually try to figure out what that is. That's not going to be a process that happens in a month or two. This is going to take, a year or more to kind of really dig in and figure it out. But Atkins has not said 3.3 is it. They have been very open and honest with this entire process with us and working with us very closely. And we are in constant contact with their legal staff over these issues as well.
Good. I want to confirm this on the table.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner, one thing I would like to add for clarification is all of the redesign efforts that were performed by Atkins Realis throughout this process have been done at our own cost. So there's been no remuneration for any of that work.
That's right. Different types of construction management side. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good point. Thank you.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
I will second it. Motion and second. Any public comment?
No cards in the currently for this one.
All right, I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the board. Any other discussion?
May I ask
Anyone opposed?
a question?
Go ahead. Sorry. Sure. Right.
Council, is that okay?
Sure, absolutely. By all means.
Well, this, I hate to use the word litigation, well, this settling of everything that, will it be going on at the same time the construction's going on? Or will it sit there and wait until construction is complete?
No, so we will begin this right alongside construction is occurring. It's actually the desire of all of the parties to actually get ahead of this. We've had a very good relationship so far talking through this. We've already indicated, probably brought before the board that we'll have to bring what's called a full agreement, whereby we will reserve our rights to sue with the hope that we can just mediate this outside of the courts, because I think as the gentleman talked about earlier, we don't need to pay other attorneys any more money. And so really the goal is to come together, figure out what those costs are, and bring that back before the board.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion, a second on the floor. Anyone opposed? See none, motion carries unanimously. Steve, we'll go to item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 3, request board approve a contract extension with EG Solutions in the amount of $12,580,296 to perform construction, engineering, and inspection services for the terminal expansion project.
I move approval, Chairman.
I will second it. Motion, a second on the floor. Any public comments? See none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any other discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I would like to compliment EG Solutions for our interactions. They are our engineer. They are our system person, so looking out for us to make sure the work is done right. And I appreciate their perspective, their diligence, and making sure that our back's covered in this project. And they've been very professional, and I look forward to seeing us to the success of this project. So thank you to both Callie and
I agree with you 100%, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any other issues, Steve, before us?
That is all, Mr. Chair.
If I may, gentlemen, I really appreciate the indulgences. Unfortunately, my brother has really turned for the worse, so I don't know when I'll be back, but I do believe that he'll be seeing the Lord pretty soon.
Sorry to hear that.
We're sorry to hear that. Stand prayers for you, bud. We're praying for you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr.